Hello, everyone, and welcome to today's wellness event. Get ready for the new year, supporting your nutrition and wellness. We want to thank you for sharing your lunch hour with us. My name is Becky Picone. I work in alumni relations, and I, along with my colleague, Michelle Cavalcanti, will be moderating this event today. You can find closed caption available in your navigation bar below, and we welcome Jesse Felk, who will be our interpreter for today's event. Thank you, Jesse. During the presentation, we do ask you to keep your microphones on mute. There will be a question and answer period following the presentation, so send any questions that you have to Michelle Cavalcanti in a private chat. We want to thank those of you who did send questions in when registering, and we'll try to get it to as many as we can during the next hour. This event is being recorded, and we'll be sending a link to that recording and any other links that we share in the event in a follow-up email to everybody who has registered. Now, I'd like to introduce Melissa Schmidt from the Warner class of 2002. In addition to being a past colleague here in alumni relations, Melissa is one of our alumni wellness coaches, and I will share that link shortly as well. Melissa is a founder of Mindset Nutrition Coaching, helping midlife women who burn the candle at both ends change their bodies, shift their mindset, and build body confidence through a sustainable and highly personalized framework, one healthy habit at a time. Melissa's evidence-based, one-size-fits-one approach is collaborative, communicative, and client-centered. She believes all food fits, meeting each client's unique, ever-changing needs and goals. Melissa's philosophy is one of deep health, partnering with clients to address not only nutrition, but sleep, stress, change, mindset, and overall wellness. She empowers clients to be proactive, enact change, and take responsibility by identifying that alignment between their values, identities, and priorities. Melissa has her master's degree in higher education administration from the University of Rochester's Warner School of Education and is mental health first aid certified. She's a precision nutrition L2 certified master nutrition and health coach and has over 10 years of experience as a certified Mad Dog spinning spin power instructor, a certified Kaiser indoor cycling instructor, certified Schwinn Empower indoor cycling instructor, and certified TRX instructor. She's a member of the Women in Fitness Association and Indoor Cycling Association and has served as a master indoor cycling instructor for local gyms, training and mentoring new instructors. She currently teaches spinning and TRX and hosts bi-monthly nutrition and wellness workshops for the YMCA of Greater Rochester. Thank you so much, Melissa, for being with us today. And with that, I will pass it over to you.
Becky, thank you for that awesome introduction. So, as Becky said, I work primarily with midlife women over 40. They are in that perimenopausal through that menopausal stage of life. We really focus on shifting mindsets, particularly restrictive mindsets around food and eating, and working on body composition and just sort of cutting through all the diet clutter culture that we're just inundated with all the time. I do work one-on-one with clients. I work in small groups. I do grocery store navigation tours so that we're in a position to start choosing better foods and better options so that we can nourish our bodies. I do power hour tune-up micro program sessions, and I do host lots of different kinds of webinars and in-person series for businesses and organizations. And I love doing things like this. I do teach at several of our YMCAs here in Rochester. So if you are local to Rochester and you're a YMCA member, you can come to any of my nutrition sessions there. You can come to my classes. I'm actually teaching spinning tonight. So if you're looking for a class, come on out tonight and join us. Let's sort of get right into this. I've got some notes in front of me to make sure that we are staying on track. And today, we're really going to be talking about big picture foundational strategies so that you can take more charge of your nutrition and wellness. I'm not going to be talking very specifically about food or nutrition proper or portions or calories, what to eat, protein, carbs, fats, all of those things, because before we even get to that point, we want to start to create awareness around why we're choosing certain foods, our hunger levels. Are there people, places, or situations that are sort of triggers to us making less than optimal decisions? So while it's about the food, right? Certainly the food matters. It goes way beyond the food. It is way more than the food. So we're working today about setting these foundations so that as we start to make progress towards nutrition and wellness, we have that self-awareness so that we can make better decisions. And I just want to say, quick disclaimer, I'm not a doctor. I am a qualified medical, nutrition professional, but nothing we're talking about today is about prescribing or diagnosing or treating any medical conditions. So I just want to make sure everybody is clear on my scope of practice. So we're going to be talking about 7 strategies today. There are certainly more than 7, but we only have an hour. So I chose these because I thought they were the most salient. And what I like about these is that they all work together and complement each other. You can start with one, you can start with more than one. They are not mutually exclusive. They're not in any particular order. But like any new habit or new practice, it takes time to learn and hone and really get good at them. So like most things in nutrition and wellness, consistency is key, right? So it's about making small progress over time, not about striving for perfection, and really looking at how you can make small steps, take small actions, and create small wins, and then celebrate those small wins. And we'll have time at the end for Q&A. Michelle is monitoring the chat. So use the chat, talk to each other. If something is really resonating with you, drop a note in the chat, but it's a great opportunity for us to stay connected. And there will be a follow-up email after this. I sent Becky and Michelle some really interesting handouts and resources that will support your efforts as you start to kickstart your journey. So before we talk about what does work, I want to talk about what does not work. And we know that hacks don't hold up. More than 2/3 of Americans are overweight and actively trying to lose weight at any given time. And most people I know have tried pretty much every fad diet under the sun, right? Every gimmick, every supplement, detox, teas, waist trainers. My average client has been on over a dozen diets, many of them since the age of 12. And that's really concerning because nothing's ever changed. They've never achieved the goals that they've wanted to achieve by going on diets. And if you relate to any of this, drop a yes in the chat, show me a hands up, give me a thumbs up, because this is the majority of our population. Right? These hacks, the pseudoscience, the shortcuts don't work because nutrition and wellness is about creating real sustainable change. And that takes time and effort. So when I work with clients, one of the first things I do before we even choose to work with each other is try to assess their readiness, willingness, and ableness. Because if you're not ready, willing, and able to start to dig in and do the work that has to be done consistently and show up in some way every day, it's going to be really, really hard for you to make long-term progress, right? And it's hard because we live in this society where everybody wants instant gratification, right? But your health and wellness, nutrition, it's not going to show up like Amazon Prime on your stoop tomorrow, right? It takes time and effort. And these are some of the things that I hear all the time from people, just regurgitated one-liners from the media or social media and friends and family, like all the things that people think they need to do or need to follow, these arbitrary rules and restrictions that are going to get them to whatever goal they have when it comes to nutrition and wellness and health. And I think the hard part for people to start to wrap their heads around is that for many people, weight, wellness, health, it is a direct side effect of their relationship with food, with their body, with their lifestyle, with their mindset, and with exercise. So it's really multifaceted. And nutrition and wellness at the core and at the highest level is really quite simple. But we make things really, really complicated because we're constantly looking for workarounds to avoid having to do all the things that really need to be done on a daily basis. So if any of this resonates with you, are there diets that you might have tried? Are there things that you have heard? Do you even follow some of these rules? Are these misconceptions or thoughts and beliefs that you hold? If any of this resonates, drop a note in the chat. Let me know what makes sense to you and what you resonate with. So let's talk about diets. I'm looking here at some of the most popular fad diets. I'm not talking about things like the DASH diet or the Mediterranean diet, because those are not diets based on restriction. They're lifestyle modifications, whereas these are all based on restriction. So let me know in the chat who's been on a diet, maybe dozens of diets, right? Did they work? Did they not work? What happened when you stopped the diet? And there are more than just these, right? We can add Jenny Craig, Noom, low carb, the list goes on. But by definition, a diet is just the regular habitual nourishment that we consume on a daily basis, right? But unfortunately, the diet culture has sort of co-opted the word diet, and now it's a verb, right? To diet. We're on or off a diet, and it is now synonymous with weight loss or fat loss, right? So when we talk about any of these fad diets, when they work, and they will work for a short period of time, but when they do work, it's because you have created a deep enough caloric deficit over a long enough duration of time, and you adhered to it consistently enough that it changed your body composition, right? So you've eaten less calories during this diet than you did pre-diet. So all it comes down to is energy balance, right? Calories in, calories out at the most basic framework of a level. But these diets manage your food and your portions and what you're eating by eliminating foods, eliminating food groups, right? Eat this, don't eat this, or they put a time limit on it. But it's all about energy balance. And unfortunately, the problem with these diets is that they are so overly restrictive that you can't live like this for the rest of your life, right? Because life happens, and it's a one size fits all approach that doesn't fit into the majority of people's lives. So, you start with the reins really, really tight. And then over time, because of deprivation and restriction, you start to loosen the reins, and then you just let go of the reins, and everything starts to fall apart because they're not intended to be lifelong lifestyle ways of eating. Right. So we know that diets don't work for sustainable change because they are short-term band-aid approaches, very long-term lifestyle habit and mindset challenges, right? And there's no such thing as the best diet, right? If there was a one-size-fits-all diet and it worked for long-term sustainable change, then the last diet you were on would have been the last diet you would ever be on. But we know that's not the case, right? People are chronic, lifelong dieters. And we know that this leads to a lot of issues with preoccupation with food and your body and body image, binging and overeating episodes, weight cycling, yo-yo dieting, right? Lose 10, gain 20, lose 20, gain 25. And it also can lead to disordered eating as well as eating disorders. And, we are all unique individuals. We have different lifestyles, different activity levels, different genetics, different upbringings, different ages, health statuses, right? Our culture. So these one size fits all diets don't work because we are unique individuals. And when we start to restrict calories, right, the deeper the restriction and the longer the duration, our body starts to conserve energy. This is normal, right? There is no such thing as starvation mode. It is conservation because your body is very thrifty. So we start to store extra calories as body fat, and we burn fewer calories at rest. And that is called metabolic adaptation. That is perfectly normal. It is always going to happen. And it's going to happen whether you follow a fad diet or a name diet, or you do things a different way. You can't stop it. But depending upon how deep that restriction is and how long the duration of the restriction is, we can manage the metabolic adaptation so it's less uncomfortable. And then you can consistently adhere to it over a longer period of time. The other thing to keep in mind is that as we diet and we restrict calories, a lot of different physiological and biological changes take place in our body, and it has this like cascading domino effect. So let's look a little bit. These are just a few of the things that start to happen biologically and physiologically. Again, the depth of the calorie restriction, right? How much you're not eating, the duration, as well as your dieting history can all directly impact how severe some of these things and other things actually start to happen. Because when we diet, when we restrict calories, and then we add exercise or over exercising on top of that, those are stressors, mental and physical stressors on our body. That's above and beyond any life stress or other stress, perceived or otherwise. So all of these things start to happen, but your body is very savvy and your body is very thrifty. And as soon as it senses a restriction, it starts to go into conservation mode, right? And it fights back hard because it is always seeking homeostasis. So your body doesn't know you want a six pack. All it knows is that it's not getting enough energy to keep the lights on and pay the rent, let alone do all the other things in life that you are trying to achieve. So when it starts to sense this lack of energy, it redirects the calories it does have and the energy it does have stored and what you're eating to places that are the most important, right? Your vital organs, your heart rate, breathing, your brain. Your brain is very greedy. It needs a lot of energy via glucose and carbohydrates to function at a high level and keep you going, right? And then your body's like, okay, not enough calories. I'm going to make you really cold because I need you to, everything has to start to slow down, right? If you're a woman and you're still getting your periods might become very irregular or stop altogether. That is a sign of dysfunction. That is not a healthy place to be. That's telling you something is wrong, right? Your hair starts to fall out or thin out and gets really brittle. The quality of your skin and your nails start to decrease. Your thyroid activity really starts to downregulate. So your thyroid activity and those thyroid hormones help regulate metabolism. So when that starts to downregulate, that becomes really problematic. Your metabolic rate, your BMR, your basal metabolic rate, that's about 70% of your total daily energy expenditure, right? The total amount of calories that your body burns estimated every day to do all the things it needs to do. So when you're not eating, that BMR starts to drop, which means everything else starts to slow down. Now, your fullness hormones and your hunger hormones, the fullness hormone, leptin, it starts to increase, and the hunger hormone, ghrelin, the fullness hormone starts to decrease while the hunger hormone starts to increase. So instead of staying, mostly consistent with a little bit of highs and a little bit of lows, they start to really fluctuate severely. You get tired, you get cravings, and these cravings are, you want the highly processed food, the really high palatable, high fat, high sugar treats and sweets, but you also start to crave carbohydrate because that is your body's preferred energy source, your body's preferred fuel source. So you start to want things like bread and pasta and rice and a bagel, right? You start to get real hangry and really moody. Your sleep starts to suffer. Like, this is not a good, healthy place to be. And this is the place where people try to live the majority of their lives. And we're not designed to live the majority of our lives in a caloric restriction. Make sense? So anybody who's been on a diet knows this diet cycle well. And unfortunately, anytime you start a new diet, particularly a fad diet, because it's coming from a place of severe deprivation and restriction, this cycle is always going to happen. It is inevitable, right? So we start a new diet and everything's going great. You feel really good. You might be seeing weight loss happen, right? The scale might move a little bit. So that fuels your motivation. And then, right, you've got the reins really, really tight, like I said before. And then over time, you're restricting more, you're feeling more deprived, you're obsessing about all the food that you can't have because whatever diet you're on banished all these foods or food groups into the do not eat category. And those are the things you're craving, right? You're not craving chicken and broccoli. You're craving all the foods that you are now not allowed to eat while you're on this diet, right? But your body, we just talked about some of the things that happen. Your body starts to fight back, right? At first, it's sort of nudging you gently, like, please feed me. It's making you really hungry. It's making you less full all the time. And then it starts to knock on the door really hard. And at some point, that knock on the door turns into, when the police show up at your door and they bash the door in to get into your house. That's what starts to happen, right? So your body needs the energy. And then, of course, life happens, like a global pandemic or 8 weeks of a holiday or a death in the family or something really hard, but your diet isn't flexible enough to accommodate life. Right? So you slip off, right? That expression, you sort of fall off the wagon. And if you're like most chronic dieters that I work up, that slip up and that off the wagon sort of turns into this epic binge or epic overeating episode, right? And it's not because you're out of control in any way. It's all that built up self-imposed restriction and deprivation, sort of like a pendulum, right? So on one end of the pendulum, you've got hardcore restriction. And on the other end of the pendulum, you've got binging and eating. And when one side let goes, it swings back the other way, right? So again, you fail, you feel like a failure, you feel guilty, you feel a little shameful, but really you did not fail, right? You blame yourself, but really it's the diet, because that overeating episode is really just you overcompensating for that serious self-imposed restriction that you put on yourself, right? So the overeating isn't the problem, it's this the severe restriction that you've placed yourself under. So what do? Monday rolls around and we start a new diet, right? And this just keeps repeating itself over and over. Nothing changes. You don't learn anything new. You just jump to the next thing, hoping that the next thing will get you the results that you want. So let's focus on what does work, right? We know habit change is what works. It is the infrastructure of compliance for any change, whether that be diet, nutrition, health, wellness, fitness, because without habits, there is no lifelong success. And we know that habits account for about 40% of our daily behaviors. And that's a good thing, because without it, our brain doesn't have an autopilot system and we'd be stuck floundering through making thousands of decisions all day long, right? But unfortunately, our food relationship is also a collection of habits, right? It's the habits you've accumulated over a lifetime of food preferences, how you eat, what you eat, why you eat, when you eat, how much you eat, how your eating or your eating patterns and drinking patterns change situationally, depending upon where you are and who you're with and time of year, right? So they come from our experiences, our unique individual experiences, our upbringing, our genetics, our culture, even our religion and our environment. So again, if we're such unique individuals, there's no way that a one-size-fits-all fad diet is going to work for everybody. So we have to focus on making sustainable lifestyle and mindset changes as foundations of success. So let's get into these strategies and talk about the first one. The first one is the photo food diary. So I like to call this snap and track. Snap a picture, track your food. And the goal is to create awareness. Right. Again, think of yourself as your own research study. You're an N of one. You're your own guinea pig. You can't start to work on food and what you eat and getting to the heart of how you change your diet and nutrition and improve wellness without understanding yourself better. It's just not possible, right? So we want to start to create and understand the why and the what behind what you eat and drink, so that you can make better decisions and use the data to move forward and make progress. So the goal of this is to see visually in pictures everything you eat and drink over a period of time. For 7 days minimum, 14 days is even better. Really critical that you get a weekend in there, because weekends are really, really enlightening for a lot of people. Because if you're somebody who, you're good all week and then you're bad on the weekends, right? Things go off the rail and you just eat and drink too much over the weekends, you don't have a wellness and nutrition problem. You have a lifestyle, habit, and mindset problem. So we want to start to deconstruct and reverse engineer what is happening all week that's leading to your weekends falling apart, right? So we want to take these pictures, keep them in one place, write down what's in the picture and the time that you ate. Now, if you want to take this to the next level and get an even deeper understanding, note your hunger levels before, during, and after eating. Think about any emotions that were involved around food and eating. Note where you were eating and how you were eating, right? Were you eating in a stressful, chaotic state? Were you standing around, walking around the kitchen, picking on your kids' leftover chicken nuggets, right? Or were you eating in a calm way at a kitchen table, really focusing on your food, right? In that rest and digest place versus a place of stress. And really start to get reflections, because we want to look for patterns and priorities and trends. Now, if taking pictures isn't your thing, use an old school notebook. Just write it down, keep a journal, right? It doesn't matter how you do it, but doing it and the act of doing it so that you learn about yourself and you can find these patterns is what matters. And I put here, there's a couple of apps that are really great, like MealSnap or Meal Logger or See How You Eat, if you want to sort of take this in a more formal fashion. Michelle, do we have any questions so far?
We're doing pretty well. There are a couple about sharing out the resource. So we are recording this to share out the video again so that people can take a look. And there was one question about, will you address the glycemic index way of eating, particularly for somebody whose husband, they wanted to use it for to concentrate as a diabetic. And I thought that was probably something that we wouldn't be covering in this one, but maybe you could follow up.
Yeah, perhaps that's something. Yeah, if we can maybe put that in the parking lot, because that's a really specific, and it has some medical underlyings as well. Yeah.
Okay, great. Thank you.
Okay. Yep, you bet. So after you've got your data, you've taken your pictures, you've got your diary. Now it's time to review and reflect, right? Because we have to do something with this information. Otherwise, we're not going to be able to move forward. So these are a few questions you can start to ask yourself, because we want to get to the lowest hanging fruit. Where can you make the most progress with one or two small things and then move on to the next? So as you're evaluating your pictures or your journal, start to look at the quantity and the quality of the food, right? Are you overeating? Are you undereating? Or are you sort of in that Goldilocks just right place? Are there certain days, times of days where you're making better or worse decisions? Look at your hydration status. Are you drinking any water? Are you drinking enough water? How do you know, right? Are all your beverages calorie beverages, or are you just pounding coffee all day and all night? What about alcohol? How is that impacting some of the decisions and your goals? Looking at your fruit and vegetables, do you have any, right? Looking at the color of your pictures. I had one client, every one of her pictures was like a version of beige, white, or brown. There were no vegetables besides French fries, nothing, right? So that was very telling. And that's a place where you can potentially start to make some progress, right? If you're athletic, if you're active, if you have performance goals and you're looking for gains via athletic performance, then are you eating foods that make you feel and perform your best? How are you fueling your workouts so that you are making gains from all the work you're doing and recovering appropriately from that hard work? That's really important, right? Looking at the quality of those foods. How much of what you're eating is whole foods or mostly unprocessed or, less processed versus really highly processed, highly palatable, prepackaged fast foods, convenience foods, right? And are your meals balanced, right? Do you have some sort of lean protein, a little bit of good, healthy, complex carbohydrates? That goes to sort of to that glycemic index a little bit, right? Fruit and vegetables, heart healthy fats, because those are going to keep you fuller longer. They're going to keep you healthy. So thinking about what is that low hanging fruit. And when I work with clients and we do this, we try to come from a place of addition versus removal. So how can you elevate things versus relegate? Or how can you come at it from a place of restraint versus restriction, right? What can you add? And again, the goal is sort of meliora, right? You just want to ever better this a little bit at a time so that you can make some progress.
Melissa, there's a question in here that asks if you have recommendations for good recovery post-workout foods.
Oh, I could talk about that for hours. Yes. If we want to hit that at the end, Michelle, I think that would be great because
Okay.
like 99% of nutrition, it depends. It depends on how hard, how frequent, how intense, the duration, right? The frequency, intensity, time, and type, the FIT principle really, really depends. Some of my clients might be on this call and at the end, when we're talking about questions, this is certainly something, if anybody wants to chime in about what we're working on, they're welcome to talk about that too. But yeah, I can certainly talk about that. So let's talk about strategy number 2, which is eating slowly and mindfully. And I put these together because they sort of overlap. One of the handouts we have later is something that can help you work on this. So I would say that if you're somebody who's looking to change body composition or lose a little bit of weight, or you're somebody who tends to inhale their food and wolf everything down and then go back for seconds, and it takes a long time for you to feel comfortably full, then this is a great place to start, right? So if you're unsure of where to start with any of those and that fits the bill, I would say start here because you can make a lot of progress here. So do you know how long it takes for your brain and your stomach to start this two-way conversation and connect and tell each other, I am full. I am comfortably full. I do not need any more food. It takes 20 minutes for that conversation and that two-way communication to take place. So if you're someone like most of my clients, I can tell you most people's meals do not last anywhere near 20 minutes. When we test this out with some clients and they time their meals, their average meal takes somewhere between 7 and 10 minutes. And it takes even less time when they're eating under stress, right? If they're in the stress state, if they're eating in the car, at their desk, like rushing between meetings, right? Watching TV, scrolling, if they're not paying attention and they're under stress and they're not sort of in the Zen zone and they're in the stress state, it's even less. And if you're not sure, it's something you can try yourself. Pull out your phone or a stopwatch, time a meal, time a few meals, come up with an average and start to get an idea of how long it really is taking you to eat. Because just imagine the extra calories you're consuming purely because you're not giving your brain and your stomach time to have that discussion and give you the physical fullness signal that you are comfortably satisfied and comfortably full, not over full, right? So we're talking about that sense of like 80% full, where maybe your mouth wants a little more and maybe your brain definitely wants a little more. And even in your belly, you could go a little bit more, but if you stop now, you're going to be good because in 20 minutes, you're going to feel really good versus going past that point and having that like Thanksgiving dinner feel where you have overstuffed yourself and now you feel disgusting, right? That's what we want to avoid. So tuning into, eating slowly, eating mindfully, and tuning into how your body feels has a lot of benefits, right? You can tune into your hunger and fullness cues better. There's a lot of evidence that shows it helps stop a binge or an overeating episode simply by the act of taking the stress away from eating. It helps with yo-yo dieting. It helps improve your relationship with food. So if you're somebody that often has some guilt or shame and anxiety around food, learning how to slow down and eat in a more mindful, non-judgmental way can help with that. It significantly improves digestion because digestion starts in the mouth. So if you're not chewing your food well and you're eating really fast, it's got to hit your stomach, it's got to hit your small intestine, and that takes a really, really long time. And by the time it's making its way through that series of processes, your body has to work really hard. So if you're somebody that's often bloated, a little bit gassy, you feel really uncomfortable, slow the roll, really chew your food well and slow your meals down because that will help a lot. And again, it helps control calories, even when you're not trying, right? When you slow down, you eat less food over time, meal by meal. So it helps you manage calories and portions without directly trying to manage calories or portions. Make sense? So when we start to put some of these into practice, you can think about the acronym TASTE, right? So really think about, why are you hungry? There's different kinds of hunger. There's emotional hunger. There's physical hunger. We eat out of boredom. I call eating by the clock, I call that eat o'clock, right? Like it's noon, you're not hungry, but noon equals lunch, and that equals eat, whether you're hungry or not, right? So something to think about. Appreciate your food. Be grateful. Right? Eat slowly. I just talked about that a little bit. Chew your food. Chew, 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 chew. And if you think you've chewed it enough, chew it some more, right? Put your utensils down between bites. Takes time to really savor your meal, right? Taste, textures, experiences, smells, and then end your meal with that 80% full feeling. Even if you have 3 bites left on your plate. My husband gets annoyed with me because I do. I leave like 1, 2, 3 bites on the plate. And he's like, you can't finish anything. I'm like, I'm full. I'm good. Right? If it really matters to you, wrap it up, put it in the fridge. If you're hungry in 30 minutes, finish it, right? You can always go back for more, but start to learn how to tune in so you don't go past that point of uncomfortably full. And then as we put these things together and we start to practice it, and it takes practice, it takes time to build these skills so that you're doing it without thinking about it, right? So whenever possible, and it's not always possible, right? But whenever possible, sit down, eat in a calm environment, minimal distractions, get out of the car, get away from your computer, no TV, no texting, right? Again, you want to eat in the Zen zone, not in a stress state. Notice feelings and sensations, right? Emotions, but try to be non-judgmental about them. The more you understand what's going on, the more you can make better decisions down the road about what you're eating, why you're eating, how much, what you really need. Right? Be in the moment, savor your food. If you're eating with someone, enjoy the conversation and enjoy the company. I talked about sipping water between bites, putting your utensils down between bites. Take a breath, right? Don't just inhale your food. One tip that works for a lot of people, whatever that favorite thing is on your plate, save that for last, because that speaks to satiety, right? How satisfying was your meal, right? And if your meal was satisfying, you're less likely later to get cravings, to want snacks, especially for nighttime eating, right? You feel better about what you ate because it made you feel good. You didn't feel like you were missing out on something. Set a minimum number of chews per bite, right? When I wiped out on my bike and I broke my arm and my wrist and part of my hand, I'm a lefty. I had to do everything with my right hand. So use your non-dominant hand and practice eating that way because it forces you to slow down. And it's a great way to start to practice this. Find another eater and slow your pace down to them. I am my husband's food indie pace car. He will slow down his food. I am slow as molasses. He did great last night. The night before, he was done in 5 minutes. Practice, 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 right? Talked about timing your meals. So for 1 week, maybe you add 2 minutes to your timer, just a few minutes a week, build up so that your stretch goal is making your meals last 20 to 30 minutes, right? It's not going to always happen, but when you have the opportunity, you can work up to that. And I would think one of the biggest points is don't just get around to eating when you get around to eating, right? Don't treat eating like an inconvenience. I hear from a lot of clients that like, I don't have time to eat, or I'm too busy, or I just have too much to do. We're all busy. We all have too much to do. And there are no gold stars for being a martyr or being busy, right? So if your goal is wellness and nutrition improvements, we have to build time in to fuel and nourish and eat. We all have appointments, right? If you're working, you have meetings on your calendar, doctor's appointments, maybe you're driving your kid around to soccer practices, whatever it is, you honor those appointments, right? Very rarely are you going to cancel or not show up unless you have to. So put it on your calendar, same for exercise, and honor it the same way you honor all those other appointments. Make sense? All right, strategy 3 is name your non-negotiables. This is a good one. So our non-negotiables, I talk about this with clients a lot. These are the foods, the beverages, the behaviors, the actions that you are unwilling to change or give up long-term, at least for now, right? So, but know that when we're embarking on a health enhancing journey, wellness, nutrition, whatever it happens to be, you're going to have to change. That is not negotiable, right? And compromise at some point is going to have to come into play. So these examples, these are all examples of non-negotiables from my actual clients. And once you know what they are, you call them out, you can account for them, you can budget for them, and you can work around them because it puts them in the context of a bigger nutrition and wellness strategy, right? It starts you planning ahead and thinking ahead, right? So fad diets, they manage your calories by removing foods, but they also manage your non-negotiables by putting a time limit on change, right? They either do it overtly, like a challenge, right? A 30-day challenge, right? No carbohydrates, no sugar, no this, no that, no that for 30 days, right? Or they just do it sort of on the sly because they're not made to be sustainable, right? So you stop doing it after a certain amount of time. Either way, there's a time limit. And we know when there's a time limit, it doesn't work, right? So you do a 30-day challenge. What happens on day 31? What did you learn? What changed? What are you going to do differently? Probably nothing, right? So why would you start something that's going to ask you to time limit your change when you're in this for the long term? We are talking marathon, right? We want lifespan and health span, not the next 30 days or the next 3 months. The great thing with non-negotiables is unless they are really extreme and really frequent, like I know people who have 2, 3, 4 glasses of wine every single night, and I mean every night, and that's their non-negotiable, that's going to be a problem. That's going to be a huge logjam for your goals, even short term, right? But many of these are actually really doable, right? You shouldn't have to start something that asks you to give up 2 glasses of wine at book club once a month, or 1 square of dark chocolate after dinner, right? Or every Friday with your family, it's pizza night and you're allowed 1 or 2 slices of your favorite pizza, right? You shouldn't have to give up the things that you love, but you do have to account for them so that you can work around them, right? And these are also, right, examples from my clients, right? So if the goal is to have 2 glasses of wine 2 times a week, then we're working on planning ahead. When is this going to happen? How do we moderate or accommodate those wine calories that day or leading up to it so it doesn't throw things off, right? If your goal is to eat your favorite cookie after dinner every single night, well, then let's look at Is it one cookie? Is it the amount of calories? Is it a certain day? Is it every day? Like, how are we accounting for those two things? So think about even some of your non-negotiables. What are the things in your life that right now you are not willing to compromise, that you're going to have to account for, plan ahead for, and budget so that you can start to make progress? Feel free, drop some stuff in the chat if you feel comfortable sharing. Michelle can call some out as things come in. But once you start to know what these are, it makes it a lot easier because you have food freedom and you're in more control, and things are actually a lot easier than you think they ever need to be. The other thing with non-negotiables, something that I hate about the diet industry is their ridiculous obsession and illogical non-science obsession to cutting out foods and food groups, right? It gives you hard and fast rules that don't really make a lot of scientific sense. We know that moderation or flexible restraint versus rigid restraint is where people make progress. And studies that look at the difference between these, they show that with rigid restraint, people are more apt to have cognitive food bias, right? That dichotomous black and white, good and bad thinking, and they make less weight loss progress, less wellness progress over time, versus a flexible restraint approach of moderation, where there is much less, if any at all, food bias, no dichotomous black and white thinking. They lose more weight at the outset, and they lose more weight, they keep it, they maintain it long term, right? So then it's a matter of figuring out, well, what does moderation mean to you? What is your version of flexible restraint that fits into your lifestyle, right? Because if you want to change, if you're embarking on a health, wellness, nutrition, health enhancing journey, then change is not negotiable. Something has to change, right? But how you change and what you choose to focus on under your terms is fully negotiable, right? So for example, if your goal is to elevate wellness in some way, then intentional movement is not negotiable. You have to start to move more. But what is negotiable is the frequency, intensity, time, or type, right? The reps, the sets, what you choose to do, the time, place, and manner, that is totally up to you, right? So thinking about what you have control over and what you don't have control over really, really helps. So strategy
We had
4.
some people comment in the chat: morning coffee, eating out in restaurants, chocolate, wine, healthy fats like nuts, salmon, and avocado. Just naming a few of those in the chat. Also, just giving you a time check. We're at 12:43. I know you have a lot of amazing content to get through. I know time goes by so fast. So I just wanted to give you a time check.
Okay, awesome. Yeah, those are great non-negotiables, right? So it's just a matter of working them in and working on quantities and amounts and dose and frequency, right? Triage and treat. So we have lots of resources, lots of priorities. We need to fill that glass jar, right? But if we fill that jar with pebbles and sand first, the big rocks, the glaring things, the low-hanging fruit, it's not going to fit, right? So we need to fit those big rocks in first. So we want to start to identify, what are your most glaring habits in need of attention? What are the biggest obstacles standing in your way? And how can you make 1 or 2 small changes, right? Because we know that 20% of your habits account for about 80% of results. So focus on the big things, not the meaningless minutia. Focus on the big things that are going to be able to move the needle forward over and over again. Again, feel free, drop in the chat what you think some of your big rocks are that you can start to focus on, where you're going to make the biggest progress and get the biggest return on investment. And that's what you focus on. And then you move on to the next big rock. Small habits, also good, because we know we get results by focusing on, not on the results itself, but by focusing on the daily things that we do every day that lead to the results, right? So we know research says that if we focus on one behavior, one at a time, the likelihood that that will stick and become a habit a year later and beyond a year is 80%. The minute we start to take on 2, 3 or more behaviors, that rate of success plummets to 35%, and 3 or more down to 5%, right? So focus on one thing, the most important thing. And as we're thinking about how this works, think about the 5S strategy, right? We want the thing to be simple, that you can do it every day, segmental, where it's broken down into organized pieces. It has to be sequential, right? You're doing the right things at the right time in the right order. Strategic. So again, we're focusing on one thing that moves the needle, and supported, because the research shows when you are supported with coaching, mentorship, teachings, accountability, your success rate goes through the roof. Number 6 is celebrating success. And this is really important because we get so wrapped up in the goal and progress and feeling like we're not making progress that we lose sight, right? The forest for the trees kind of thing. And everybody uses the scale as a measure of progress. And the scale is good as a measure of progress, but not the measure of progress. And scale weight fluctuates every single day, sometimes wildly. That is normal, right? Alcohol, sodium, carbohydrate, meds. Did you poop and pee before you got on the scale? Are you constipated? Is there still food in your gut because you had a huge meal last night? All of these reasons is why the scale fluctuates, but the chances that you gained body fat overnight, no, not happening, right? So we need to start to identify other ways that we can track, measure, and celebrate and reward our success. And these are our non-scale victories. So start to think about, you can put them in the chat. What are the things that you can track and measure and pinpoint so that you know you're making progress above and beyond the scale? So when I work with clients, we come up with these together. It's what's meaningful to you. It's not what I think is progress, but what you think is progress, right? So for some people, they're not using the scale at all, but we're tracking body measurements. We're doing photos, progress photos once a month. We're looking at your mood. If you just got lab work done, we are now looking in 6 months to a year. How's your blood pressure? How's your cholesterol? Are you off your meds? Are your meds decreased, right? Are you managing stress better? Mindset shifts, right? If you're somebody that comes from a place of restriction and you hate and fear carbohydrates, and now you're eating carbohydrates to fuel your workouts, that's a huge win, right? You're hydrating, you're sticking to your plan, your sleep quality is better, you're sleeping more, your digestion is improved, your clothes fit better. This all counts. Don't discount any of these as progress, right? And you're in it, you're entrenched. So it's really hard sometimes to find those small wins and actually recognize them. And then the last thing is mastering that positive mindset, because psychology drives our physiology. We know that. And negative thinking often leads to more negative behaviors and negative outcomes. And these limiting beliefs are actual quotes from clients. And the growth mindset quotes are ways that they have flipped their own script to start to, take the focus off of how many times do we say things like, I can't do this because, or I'm not good at blank, or I've tried everything, nothing works, I'm just blank, right? So we keep solidifying those negative thoughts, those negative scripts in our head, but change is uncomfortable, right? So we have to start to flip that script and tell ourselves a different story if we want to play a different game, because then the convergence of our values, our identity, and our goals and our priorities all come together, and we start to embody those things and live the life that we think we should be living and be that person. Right. And as we're starting to think about these mindset shifts, these are some great places where you can start and ask yourself some good questions. The one I really love is question number 4. I go through this with many of my clients, right? 2 columns. What's good about changing? What positive things will happen when you change? And then what's good about not changing? Because not changing comes with benefits too, right? It's not just the bad things that happen when we don't change, but there are some positives. So how do we look at that and start to determine what makes the most sense for change? Right. So in a nutshell, we've got 7 different skills, 7 different strategies that you can start to employ. They all focus on trying to identify your roadblock, identify the biggest challenge, make small progress in one area, nail it, and then move on to the next. Focus on progress and not progression, right? Small wins, non-scale victories, really flipping that script in our head so that we can be more positive, and really making sure that we are also rewarding ourselves appropriately when we do make progress. And last, I would just say, like, final takeaways, right? We want to embody Meliora. We just want to be ever better across that spectrum of like worst possible case to best possible case, right? Somewhere in the middle is the sweet spot. So if we can strive for ever better, 1% better every day, you're going to be great, right? The next important thing, no matter what you're trying to improve, really get clear on your what and your why, and start with a tangible, accessible, doable target, right? Know what you're aiming for. Consider regular daily, weekly markers of success instead of waiting for some arbitrary random finish line, right? Because the finish line, like the goal moves all the time. We often move the goalpost, right? We're humans and we're hardwired to be rewarded, to do things by reward. So use that evolution in your favor. And when you do make progress in some way, reward yourself appropriately with something that's going to keep propelling you forward and fuel your success and motivation. And we are better when we do things together, right? So if you can't go this alone, work with a coach, hire a coach, find friends, family members, right? Somebody at a gym, find your group of people that is like-minded that you can team up and support each other to make progress. And then one of the biggest things I would say is we are all so hard on ourselves, right? We are human though. We're not perfect. We're not machines. You're going to have good days and bad days. You're going to nail it some days, and other days it's going to be an epic fail, and that's okay, right? That is part of the process. So give yourself some slack and some grace and compassion, and don't be so hard on yourself. Like self-bullying, it's not going to get us anywhere. Questions?
Wow, that was, I mean, I'm floored. There's so much there, Melissa. So I'm going to get right into the questions. We have about 9 minutes left. So we'll try and get through as many as we can. And then, of course, I know Melissa is also willing. She just gave all of the links, and also they're in the chat from Becky. So if you want to reach out to her and follow her, there they are. So we're going to jump right in. Here's the first question. Can you speak to the effectiveness of aerobic exercise or like high intense exercise workouts versus walking? I love to walk and have understood that this can be just as impactful as intense workout.
You need both. Again, like everything else, it depends. Walking is the most underrated, most beneficial thing anybody can do. And I strongly recommend everybody do more walking. And we're talking, I joke around with one of my clients, I call it like the crock pot workout, right? Low, slow. You're not getting your heart rate up very high. You're focusing, like you're getting your steps in. It's bringing you to a place where your parasympathetic nervous system, that rest and digest, is more engaged. Whereas HIIT and higher intensity stuff, now we're working on a stress response, right? The sympathetic nervous system, where it's really hard to come down. You need to find the balance of both. That includes when we're talking about recovery, right? You can't live in a state of stress and flight and fight, and that is not good for you. So HIIT workouts have their place 1 or 2 times a week max. You have to build in recovery time, days off when you do HIIT. Those kind of workouts are very catabolic, right? They break you down. So if your nutrition isn't supporting the work you're doing, it's hard to make progress without taking 2 steps forward and 5 steps back. Even more important, especially for women of a certain age, we lose a lot of muscle mass as we age, and we don't eat enough protein. So I would strongly recommend, I don't know how much HIIT this person is doing, but if you're doing a lot of HIIT, 1 to 2 times a week max, get your walking in, get your crock pot workout in, and then get into the strength training. You have to start to build and maintain lean muscle. That's where you're going to make significant gains. That's going to keep your metabolism up a little bit. But too many people spend all their time doing HIIT and like moderate intensity, steady state cardio. That's like the dead zone, right? It's junk miles, right? It's enough to keep you in a catabolic state, but it's not enough to give you a high enough stress stimulus to your body to signal change.
Great, thank you. The next question, how do you feel about counting macros? There are a couple of nutrition focused questions. So, so it says macros versus calorie, for instance.
Well, macros are calories, right? Every macro, protein, fats, and carbs are your macros. Every gram of protein and every gram of carbohydrates has 4 calories. Every gram of fat has 9 calories. The like pseudo macro alcohol, every gram of alcohol has 7 calories. So everything we eat comes with calories. So if you're counting macros, you are by default counting calories. I count macros. I have my own macro plan. I strive for certain goals. You're never going to hit them 100%. Every day is different. Again, it depends, right? Like, are you somebody who likes data? Does it not bother you? Will you make time to do it consistently? Is it not going to stress you out? Count macros, right? If you're data driven and that's going to work for you, count macros. If you're not data driven and it's going to stress you out, and it might, if you're maybe somebody who's prone to disordered eating patterns, this could lead you down that path, potentially. Not everybody, right? So you got to know yourself. It takes time.
Also,
right?
Sorry, I was just going to say, like, is there a formula to follow how many calories to, put in your plan for a healthy eating?
Yes, but again, it depends. And any place we start is an estimation. It's a hypothesis because we need to test it, right? People are like, well, how many calories should I be eating? I was like, I don't know. What's your goal? How many calories are you eating now? Do you even know? Like, how do you know? What are you tracking to know that you're eating too little, you're eating just enough, or you're eating too much, right? So we have to start with what you're eating. And from there, we can create a hypothesis based on what we think the goal is, right? If the goal is fat loss, then we need to create some sort of deficit. Usually 20% is a good, healthy place to start. You could start less, you could start more, but just know the deeper the deficit, the more discomfort and the harder it is to adhere consistently versus a more moderate, sustainable deficit. Because that your body adapts. I talked about metabolic adaptation. So you can live in that place for so long until things start to level out, right? People talk about, I hit a plateau. Well, you're now at your new maintenance, right? What was your deficit is now your maintenance calories. So let's live at maintenance for a little bit, because ultimately the goal long-term for the rest of your life is a version of maintenance. We cannot live in a state of caloric restriction. We need to live at maintenance, right? But in the middle, we're going to lose weight, we're going to hit maintenance. We're going to lose, we're going to hit maintenance. You might gain a little, we hit maintenance, right? It is not a linear process. So it's really an up and down kind of thing. And it also depends on activity levels, right? How active are you? You know, if you're really, really highly active and you have performance goals, then we're going to look at carbohydrate intake, because it's going to start to matter. Always focus on protein first with my clients. That is one of the big ones, especially women, because people are protein deficient, right? So if you look at your protein first, and maybe that's where you start to make some progress and start to increase your protein over time, that's a great place to start.
I'm not going to get to all of these questions, unfortunately. I'm
happy to stick around a few minutes extra too, if that helps, or if it's possible, I can stay on.
Yeah, we can. What we'll do is we'll end it at 1 o'clock and let people leave if they need to, and we'll continue on with Q&A afterwards for a few minutes. Sure. So the last
Sorry to interrupt, but your interpreter does need to leave at 1, just so you know.
Okay. Thank you.
Thanks,
and also
Jessica.
I wanted to give a big thank you, because she's keeping up with your speed, Melissa. That's
I know.
Okay, so the last question for the session, I'm going to ask this question that was sent in. So they obviously follow you somewhere because they know that you prepare foods ahead of time for the week, and they're asking, that seems to be a good way to support healthy portions. What is the best way to start this practice?
Yeah, I do. I spend my Sundays planning and prepping and batch cooking, because I don't want to make a lot of decisions all week, and I want to stay on track as much as I can. So, you know, pick maybe one meal. It could be where you need the most work, right? It could be the meal that you struggle with all the time. Maybe it's lunches. So think about, you know, what does your healthy lunch look like for you? Think about a protein, a complex carbohydrate, fruits and vegetables, and a little bit and some healthy fat, and start. Like you need to come up with some sort of plan of action. You've got to make a list, look in your pantry first, see what you already have, so you're not double booking, go shopping, and then you need to block time to do some prep. You don't have to plan the entire week out, but even, you know, 3-4 days worth of meals, if you're comfortable eating the same meal over and over again, great. That speaks to consistency and less planning. If you're somebody who can't eat the same meal over and over again, then maybe you've got a couple of meals in rotation, like every other day, you're alternating. Maybe one of my tricks is a really big salad at least once a day, because then I know I'm getting in extra vegetables, micronutrients, vitamins and minerals, fiber, hydration. I load in a protein, I'll add a grain to that, you know, a healthy fat, an acid, and it's good to go. So I grill up 2 pounds of chicken breast every week. I have it. That's something that I love, right? Yeah. You might like something else. Maybe you're meatless and tofu is your thing, or you're focusing on beans or other meatless options, right? Maybe it's even a protein shake for breakfast. One of my clients really lives by protein shakes for breakfast, and it serves her well. Some people, you can make little packs where you're taking your fruits and vegetables, portioning them out into little baggies, stick them in the freezer. So all you got to do is add your liquid as a base, throw in a protein powder, dump in that little baggie, blend it up, and it's ready to go. You can even make it the night before, stick it in your fridge, and then you're not rushing around in the morning.
Okay, wait. I'm going to say thank you to Jessie, our interpreter today. And for anybody else that needs to to go back to work or head on to your next activity for the day. We will continue for another 10 minutes or so for people who still have questions. We will be sharing out the video. So all of that good material that Licia has talked about very quickly throughout this program will be shared again for you to reference. And also we have some follow-up, some worksheets that Melissa has put together. So we think those will be helpful, and we'll send them out after when the video is ready. So thank you again, Jesse. And for all of you who are leaving, thank you for attending. And for those who are staying, I will continue asking questions.
Thanks, everyone. And you're welcome. If people want to unmute as we're going through questions, happy to just have it be more conversational and informal.
Absolutely. I welcome that as well. So while we wait for the next one, the next question, do you have good recommendations for energy foods, high energy for foods that will give you some energy?
Yeah. So with energy, it's not just the quality and the quantity, but it's also often the frequency, right? So if you're not eating enough throughout the day, then your blood sugar drops, you get lethargic, and then you're, snacking, grabbing for a quick energy boost, right? So often people get that afternoon slump, and a lot of times it's not necessarily that they're tired or they're even fatigued from sitting in front of the computer. It's just that, they started the day behind the 8 ball. They didn't have a well-balanced breakfast. And then their lunch was also a little on the light side and not balanced, right? So it's this nutrition is a cumulative effect. It's not just what you ate 3 hours ago, it's what you ate yesterday and 2 days ago, right? It has this cumulative effect, like compounding interest. So I always would say, if you're not a breakfast eater and you're looking to maybe start to eat breakfast, then start with breakfast. It's a great place to start, and start with a protein. Make sure you've got protein in your breakfast. Anywhere between 20 and 30 grams of protein is a stretch goal, and that's hard for a lot of people. So, you can, just because a breakfast food is a breakfast food doesn't mean you can't eat other foods for breakfast, right? Like around the world, they don't eat eggs, they eat other things, right? We have breakfast foods, but eat what you like. Like if breakfast food isn't your thing and you're comfortable eating something else for breakfast, then that's your breakfast. Right. But whatever it is, make sure you're getting some sort of lean protein, and that can come from any animal product. It can come from eggs. It can come from non-animal foods. Just know that if you are mostly plant-based or vegan, then you're going to have to eat a lot more foods and more diverse foods to get the same amount of protein and the right amino acid profile so that you're not deficient compared to if you ate mostly animal foods, right? So start that breakfast with a good serving of protein, add in a complex carbohydrate, like oatmeal is a great option because it's got fiber as well. It's got a little bit of protein. Some fruit and vegetable is great. So you start your day with a serving of a fruit or a vegetable. You can add in some healthy fat, like some avocado or a nut butter, and that will keep you full really long. One of the reasons it keeps you full is that protein, it takes your body a really long time to digest and metabolize. There's something called the thermic effect of food, which is how many calories your body uses by digesting and metabolizing the food, right? Because we don't get all the energy from the food we eat. Some of it gets lost in digestion and metabolization. So protein has the highest thermic effect. So as you add protein, it will keep you full longer. Your body will burn just a little bit more calories over time. Same with fiber, fruits, vegetables, and fiber. You're getting huge bang for your buck. And then you're getting vitamins and minerals too. Because remember, when we restrict foods or we remove foods and food groups, we're not just eliminating calories, but we're eliminating vitamins and minerals and fiber and potentially hydration, right? So now you're playing like macro and micro Tetris, trying to fit everything in, and then you might run the risk of becoming nutrient deficient. So that really that great breakfast, if you're thinking about a breakfast, it doesn't have to be massive amounts of food, but starting the day with a good breakfast, because you're coming off a fast from nighttime, right? So that'll kickstart your morning. And then make sure you have a well-balanced lunch. Again, a protein, a complex carbohydrate, some fruit and vegetables, some healthy fat. That combination is what keeps you fullest the longest. And those things work together in synergy.
Great. Can you talk a little bit about weight gain and strategies on how to lose weight after 50?
Yeah, I mean, to be honest, losing weight after 50 isn't that different than losing weight before 50. What tends to happen is that, people blame their hormones. It's not just hormones and it's not just calories. It's, I talked about this a little bit earlier with that cascade of physiological and biological changes that happen. It's the interplay between two. One affects the other significantly. So as we age, I hear from people all the time, I'm not doing anything differently. I eat healthy. I'm not eating more, I'm not working out any less. But in reality, when we start to peel away the layers of the onion and really start to look historically, maybe over the last 10 years, you have changed your diet, but it's in such small, almost imperceptible ways that over time, you've gained a lot of weight. You've gained a lot of body fat, right? Your movement have changed. Your habits have changed. The increases in alcohol is a huge one. So as we get older, we have to look at the quality of our diet. Again, I will preach protein is queen. I will preach protein, and unless you've got kidney disease, that's a different story. But if you're healthy and you got kidneys and everything's working fine, then increasing your protein is one of the first places to start. Looking at carbohydrate intake is also really important, and limiting highly processed foods.
Mhm.
So, people demonize carbohydrates because what do people think carbohydrates are? Cookies, snack, candy, pizza, French fries. There are carbohydrates in those foods, but there are equal, if not higher amounts of fat in that food as well, right? So those are high fat, highly processed foods. They don't fill you up. You crave them more and more. They are not nutrient dense, and they're not helping our diet. So when people are like, oh, I cut carbs and I lost weight, I'm like, you didn't cut you didn't cut healthy. You cut out, you cut out highly processed foods, which means you cut out a ton of calories, mostly from fat, not just carbohydrates, right? A slice of pizza doesn't impact your body the same way as, brown rice. The calories might be the same depending on quantity, but the metabolic effect it has on your body is very, very different. So we have to start to look at quality, and those, the quality of carbohydrates is really, really important. We have to start to limit those non-essential treats and sweets and high fat, high sodium processed carbs, and look at, the quality carbohydrates, the fruits, the grains, the things that have high fiber, because that's going to take us really, really far. And we have to start to look at our workouts, because I said this before, most women over 40 and over 50 that I work with, they join a gym and they just go cardio, like all day long with the cardio every day. It's not doing you any favors, right? You cannot out exercise a bad diet, right? And exercise, when we look at total daily energy expenditure, I showed that chart earlier. We've got basal metabolic rate, which is about 70%. Then you've got, the thermic effect of food, which is about 10%, right? The amount of calories our body burns by eating different foods. You've got non-exercise activity thermogenesis. That's the walking, that's the fidgeting, that's me gesticulating wildly with my hands, right? Doing chores, parking farther away, all the calories your body burns without you really thinking about it and putting effort into it. Your heart rate's not going up. Then you've got exercise activity thermogenesis. That tiny piece of the top puzzle, right? Your purposeful, deliberate exercise, heart rate's getting up, you go to the gym, whatever, that is only 5%. That's it. It's like nothing. You cannot out exercise a bad diet, right? So you have to start with diet and exercise. And then if you are exercising, you have to shift the focus from constant cardio to strength training. And, I hear from women, oh, I'm going to get bulky. You're not going to get bulky. Like you would have to have, your full-time job be a bodybuilder for you to get bulky. It is really not going to happen. It's just not, right? And women always say, well, I want to be toned. Well, that means muscle, right? And if you want to be toned, you have to start to lift weights. And I'm not talking about 2-pound little pink weights, assuming you don't have any health issues that preclude you from lifting a little bit heavier, right? So granted, we all have to start someplace. Maybe 2-pound weights is that's where you are. Maybe you have an injury. Maybe you've never worked out before, and that's where you're starting, right? Where you start is we all have to start someplace. But really looking at diet, protein intake, types of carbohydrates and quantity, healthy fats, right? We can overeat anything, and overeating anything leads to issues with energy balance, right? If we eat more than our body needs, we store it as body fat. If we eat less, we start to lose weight, right? If we eat the exact same amount of calories that our body needs and uses about every day, more or less maintenance, right? So we have to start to look at those things, but we have to track something. You don't have to count macros, right? You don't have to count calories, but calories count. And they have to be accounted for in some way, right? We have to track something. Otherwise, we don't know where you're starting to figure out where you're going, right? We cannot manage what we cannot measure. So we have to start someplace. But the basic good eating principles that apply to most people, it's not just I said this first, it's the food, but it's not the food, right? Because as we're over 50, we're also in this sandwich generation of maybe caring for your kids, caring for your aging parents. You've got work stress. You've got tons of life stress. With hormonal changes, maybe you're having hot flashes and you're not sleeping well or at all, right? Maybe you're too exhausted to work out. You're too tired to cook, right? You're using alcohol as a way to manage stress, which is also not helping your sleep issues. So is it food? Yeah. But is it all these other things that compound and make the weight loss as we get older harder? We have to address all of these things. We don't have to address them all at the same time, but I had one client, one of my past clients, she would wake up at 4 o'clock in the morning to train like 3 days a week. And her sleep was pitiful. Like she got no sleep at all. And she finally got to the point where she was willing to sacrifice one morning workout and sleep in. And it made a huge difference, huge difference.
I think we're going to be wrapping up soon. It's just about 10 minutes over. If there's anybody that has one last question, I'm happy to have Melissa answer. If you want to unmute and ask the question, or otherwise we can wrap it up now and just say our thank yous to Melissa. So I'll leave 1 second to see if anybody, not 1 second, a couple seconds to see if anybody wants to unmute to ask their question directly. Otherwise, I think we might be at a good stopping point. So I want to thank Melissa for this amazing presentation. You've given everybody a lot to think about, I think, at least me. I'm going to walk by my chip aisle tomorrow when I go grocery shopping as my first attempt. So thank you so much, Melissa. I see that we have the links there for people to reach out directly if they want to learn more about your coaching. She is one of our alumni life and career coaches. So you can find her on our career resources page under coaches. And we just look forward to hearing more about your great tips, and we'll find you on Instagram and everywhere else. So thank you so much.
Thank you. Thanks, everyone. I appreciate you taking the time
appreciate
today to focus on you. Thank you.
Take care, everybody. Thanks.